Celebrating 43 years on the air, Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, our coronavirus update. The biggest aid bill in history will send trillions to Americans. Plus, can your pet get the virus? This doctor says no. In Southern gardening, something to do while you're sheltering in place. Gary has the how-to. And in our feature, when the outbreak's over, new jobs in West Virginia. Farm Week starts right now. Hello everybody, I'm Mike Russell. Good to have you with us today on Farm Week. We hope you're healthy and safe and weathering this outbreak without too much trouble. Speaking of the outbreak, its effects continue around the globe and are showing up in bigger ways in rural America. Everything from ordering tractor parts to contacting your FSA office. That $2 trillion relief package wound its way through Congress while ag groups asked not to be forgotten. The largest aid bill in U.S. history sailed through the Senate unanimously last Wednesday, then was on to the president for his signature Friday. The CARES Act, or Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act, will send more than $2 trillion to almost every person and business in America. Ag did receive some payouts in the plan. Depending on how the math is viewed, ag sectors covered by the Senate committee will see nearly $35 billion from this unprecedented action. Resources will be made available for livestock producers, the Commodity Credit Corporation, and keeping USDA inspection services open to make sure supply chains don't dry up. More than $15 billion was set aside for increased SNAP funding, and there's been a spike in applications. Ag workers were deemed essential and critical by Homeland Security. Because most travel between the U.S. and Mexico was halted, exceptions for farm labor were made, allowing guest workers into the country. Growers quickly began turning produce in the fields to items on grocery store shelves.
We're very fortunate as this COVID-19 pandemic hit our industry. It happened to hit during a slightly slower time of year. It is really in between our really busy pruning time when the vines and trees are in dormancy as we go through the spring and before we get to the harvest part for our early tree crops.
For producer Joe Del Bosque, his main crop is now asparagus. He's been able to find enough labor for now, but the outbreak has highlighted the need for immigration reform.
During this COVID-19 pandemic, we have to have people in the field to harvest our crops. The food cannot stop moving to market, and people depend on us. And we depend on these people to be here to plant and irrigate and grow our crops and harvest them also. So we're very concerned. We need to get something done with this immigration reform.
But how far essential stretches is a moving target. Corn Belt farmers will soon be in the fields, but collateral industry is cautious. Some equipment dealers are telling customers their parts will be left outside the store after the farmers call ahead. Co-ops are still open, but business is generally waves and hand signals in a few areas. Many operations still haven't received seed, but hope distribution won't have many disruptions. John Deere Company is still operating some production lines, but last week, the manufacturing giant, which earned $37 billion in 2018, pulled back on income and expense projections, citing the outbreak in its correspondence with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Several renewable fuels plants are slowing production. Some are halting altogether. The Renewable Fuels Association said around a fifth of U.S. capacity would likely go offline by April 1st. That's about 3 billion gallons a year and includes 36 plants in shutdown and 40 plants at reduced production. Because of social distance, how people receive and eat their food is changing. We'll have more on this in a soon-to-come episode of Farm Week, but in the meantime, more producers are selling direct to consumers as more of those customers concerned about shopping are ordering online. One operation in Fort Jones, California, 5 Mary's Farms, reports, quote, an unprecedented number of orders and says it is pushing its fulfillment capabilities to the max. And speaking of shopping, you may have noticed that larger grocery chains are both raising their prices and tinkering with different ways to stay in operation. Some stores are installing plexiglass barriers at the checkout counter. Some of them are also experimenting with a pickup-only style of delivery. Meanwhile, so much product is flying off the shelves that stores and their vendors are hard-pressed to keep the shelves full. Meat packers are straining to meet demand while producers are struggling to get product to market. The Senate Finance Committee has written a letter to USTR Robert Lighthizer urging the administration to, for now, slow down putting the newly passed USMCA into effect. In that bipartisan letter, they wrote, quote, USMCA should not enter into force prematurely, particularly in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, and thereby deny American farmers, workers, and businesses its intended benefits. We ask you to delay the proposed June 1st entry into force and work with Congress and stakeholders to determine a more feasible timeline. Many are asking, can my pets or farm animals get the coronavirus? I asked Dr. Kent Hoblet, Dean of Mississippi State University's preeminent College of Veterinary Medicine, for his thoughts.
Certainly from cattle to people, no. And I don't believe probably the other way, but I don't know. In cattle, the coronaviruses that I'm familiar with some of them cause shipping fever. In dairy cattle, there's a condition called winter dysentery. But this new coronavirus, or novel coronavirus, has mutated, and probably, if it follows other coronaviruses, it'll either disappear or it'll become host adapted to us, to people, as are about 6 other coronaviruses, some of which cause the common cold that we get. And so this could end up that way. That would be the best thing would be is it would disappear like SARS did from about 20 years ago. I mean, there's lots of things to worry about pets, and I'm a dog and cat lover myself. And I think, you know, there's things that we have very effective vaccines for or against in dogs and cats. And we ought to be sure our pets are immunized. In this part of the world, we ought to be sure we're on a heartworm preventive for our dogs. And if we take care of those, at this point, I don't think the coronavirus is this one certainly doesn't appear to be contagious, or at least not to the point of where it's affecting those animals. So I wouldn't worry about that.
Needless to say, as we continue to shelter in place, more people are working and playing at home. Social distance is essential. And Gary Bachman says gardening is the perfect social distance activity. And what better way to do that than by growing a colorful bedding plant called salvia? Here's Gary.
If you like beautiful and reliable flowering plants in your summer garden, then take a look at salvia. There are both annual and perennial varieties to choose from, so you just can't go wrong with salvia planted in your landscape. Annual salvia is a popular choice for many gardeners because of its bright plumes of color. The Salsa series is a good choice. Salsa salvia has medium to dark green foliage that really shows off the numerous spikes of colorful flowers. The tubular blooms are available in scarlet, purple, and white and persist for many weeks. Salsa will grow to about 10 to 12 inches tall and wide and makes a terrific bedding plant when massed together in the landscape. Now, if you're interested in perennial varieties, here are several to consider. Mystic Spires is a compact growing plant that is tolerant to the heat and humidity we experience in our Mississippi gardens. It flowers freely, producing spikes of beautiful true blue flowers all summer long. Last summer, I grew Black and Bloom and absolutely loved this plant. These plants will eventually grow to about 36 inches tall, and they thrive in our Mississippi summer heat. Now I'm really impressed with the fluted flowers of magenta Love and Wishes and glowing coral Ember's Wish. These salvia have a more open habit and will flower non-stop until frost in the fall. Another bonus is that both annual and perennial salvia are a surefire way to attract hummingbirds and butterflies to your summer garden. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman, and I'll see you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but stick around. Coming up in our Farm Week feature, 100 years ago, coal was the major source of power for most of the country, and a lot of it was mined right here in Appalachia. But these days, only a fraction of that workforce is still in coal, and many of the workers are learning new ways to make a living once we're all past this virus outbreak. New jobs in West Virginia, an uplifting story that's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
At Mississippi State University, Extension is reaching beyond the college campus and impacting adult education. We're instructing agricultural professionals on the latest trends in research and technology, inspiring communities, empowering small businesses, and promoting the growth of healthy families where youth and adults can reach their fullest potential.
The MSU Extension Service, sharing our vision for the future.
ATVs are a ton of fun for people of all ages, but these powerful machines can also be a ton of trouble if safety guidelines aren't followed. Never carry more than one person on a single ride or four-wheeler. The four-wheeler can become unstable and very dangerous. ATVs are designed for off-road use only. Never drive one on a highway or any other paved surface. And always ride the right size machine at the right speed. This message brought to you by MSU Extension 4-H.
It's a simple idea. Knowledge that transforms lives shouldn't be limited to those on a campus, but extended to any and all who want or need it, wherever they are. At Mississippi State University, we've been making that possible for more than 100 years through the MSU Extension Service. What began as an effort to extend the latest research to farmers has become something much more. Today, we're helping Mississippians from all walks of life, giving them the tools they need to build a brighter future. We're sparking the imagination of students around the state and inspiring the next generation of doctors. We're helping rural communities find their way to the internet and connect to the world at large. And we're teaching families how to lead healthier lives in ways both big and small. MSU is standing firm in its commitment to that one simple idea: extend the knowledge that transforms lives, wherever they are.
Time once again for the markets. It continues to be difficult to predict the market swings as the normal supply and demand forces work differently from week to week. Here's Zach with more.
Thanks, Mike. Last week was a grain gain, as it were. Soybeans and corn and wheat up. Everything else continued to slump. Let's take a look. As you can see, soybeans and wheat, the big winners, up $21 and $33 respectively. Lumber hit hardest, $14 down. Market analyst Dan Huber says part of that is the need for grain during uncertain times, backing up what we said last week, and China continuing to re-enter the market.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we pushed up against some highs we had witnessed maybe back around October of last year. Some of the shorter-term indicators are definitely into the overbought situation. So now, granted, not that we couldn't accelerate through, but I think to do so, we're going to need to have a little more concrete, positive news to make that happen. So, but you know, around the world, you know, with all the uncertainty that's out there, availability of supplies, and of course, we do know that you know, people in certain nations are stockpiling. You know, even domestically here, we have a lot of people who have been stockpiling on wheat, even though many probably haven't made products from scratch for 20 or 30 years, but we've got that in hand here at this point. So it's there's a two-edged sword there, of course, too. That if we bought all this product ahead, we know millers domestically and throughout the world are kind of scratching to get inventory at this point in time, which certainly helped to lift those wheat prices up. But we have the counter effect there too. That at some point, once we are through this crisis, there's going to be a lot of not the raw product per se, but of course finished products that people might have on their shelves, and we could see demand fall off a cliff here at that point. And of course we have to consider that we have driven, and not just the corn, but of course so many commodity markets, livestock included, down to really recession lows. 2008, 2009 type of valuations here, and I think that we bounced back a little bit on corn is indicative that yes, there is still value out there, and we still have a fair amount of livestock on feed. Those numbers have not shrunken by any stretch of the imagination at this point. And I think there is some optimism that yes, with China starting to come back into the world, here they came in and bought corn this week, which I think that was a little bit of a surprise. That was up on their plate right away. But really for the last several weeks, the corn export sales have been improving pretty substantial, over 1.8 million metric tons this past week. So I think that is showing us a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. But boy, the big caveat there is the ethanol industry and the and of course, boy, that wasn't just a 1-2 punch. That was a 1-2-3-4 punch. From the slowdown in the world economy, from trade wars to the Saudis and Russia getting into a price war to see who can punish the other on production numbers, and of course now this with the slowdown in traffic, not just domestically but worldwide because of this coronavirus. It's pretty devastating. But meal, boy, I think you can look at one thing, and that's point your finger over to China. They are trying to gear back up their livestock production. They're trying to get their economy rolling again, and between this issue, some delays in the South American harvest on soybeans, they're just not seeing the product come into the country at this point. The raw product, of course, soybeans come into the country, and the meal prices just skyrocketed in China here this week. And I think that bled over to, 2 weeks ago, we look at the meal market, and boy, it was the dog. And here we are now, it's the leader of the pack that's taking the soybeans higher.
In the cattle market, so much confusion, just like the rest. We keep saying it, but it's still true. COVID-19 has turned everything on its head. Things look good one day, bad the next. Mike spoke with Farm Week market analyst Josh Maples, who says the current situation is unprecedented.
Josh, there is no question that the entire market system of the world, much less the United States, is in turmoil. What are you seeing on your end? Commodities all over the place.
Absolutely, Mike. This is truly unprecedented. I know we've tossed that word around a lot, but this is one of those cases where it's not cliche. This is incredible. So looking at commodities specifically, they're just, the uncertainty of the market is really what's weighing on everything. We're in a world right now where we don't exactly know what next week is going to look like in terms of consumer demand. And so really what's happened with markets is exactly what I discuss in the classroom. Whenever you have a time where there's so much uncertainty about, short-term uncertainty, then you see these extreme volatility spikes. And that's exactly what we've seen. So if you look at cattle markets, which are the ones that I follow the closest, we've seen crazy up and down days with really wild swings. And what that tells you is that the market and, people trading in the market are really struggling with how to price in all of this uncertainty that we're looking at. So it's hopefully, we're learning more about it every day. And so as we learn more, that volatility shouldn't be as big moving forward, but we'll see. We're still in the middle of it now.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. I know it's a challenge predicting futures. Everything's so unclear, but I think we'll get through this and back to normal soon. Mike?
At one time, 800,000 hardy souls dug coal in the mines of America. Many of them worked in West Virginia. These days, though, only about 50,000 people make their living that way. Job loss a major issue. But one retraining program takes an unusual approach. Peter Tubbs has that story.
And that's going to be right down the middle of it.
Two new carpenters learn mortise and tenon techniques in the wood shop at Coalfield Development in Huntington, West Virginia. They have recently joined a 3-year program with Coalfield that will teach them more than practical carpentry skills. Originally a general contractor, Coalfield found that employees had needs beyond a paycheck.
As we hired our first crew, we realized that the life challenges our crew members were facing and that the people of Southern West Virginia generally are facing are just very, very overwhelming. Financial challenges, health challenges, physical health and mental and emotional health challenges.
Workers at Coalfield Development's multiple businesses work an unusual week. 33 hours at their job, 3 hours of personal development classes, and 6 hours of community college, all on the clock.
Our model goes really, really deep, one person at a time. You know, we're not going to bring in 100 people for a week-long seminar. It's crews of 3 to 5, but we really get to know them. We earn their trust, we trust them, and they trust us. And we just work through life challenges as they arise one by one until slowly but surely we see a person start to really reverse a generational poverty cycle, which is transformational for our region.
One of Coalfield Development's companies is a t-shirt manufacturing and printing business. The shirts are made from recycled plastics, and customers can order individualized designs that are mailed directly to their homes. Barbara Mason previously worked in fast food, but now helps design and print shirts. She finds the personal development classes helpful in her life away from work.
Well, to me, they're kind of like therapy. They really help with our everyday work material and stuff like that, and really helps us all throughout struggles like budgeting and stuff like that.
Much of Appalachia and West Virginia is struggling economically. While the unemployment rate is under 5%, the contraction of the population since 1950 has stunted economic growth and opportunity. For a century, coal mining was the largest and highest paying industry. But mechanization and cheap natural gas has reduced the number of coal jobs in the state by 85%, leaving a region struggling to reinvent itself both economically and psychologically.
It is a powerful industry, but it's employment base. Every decade after decade, the trajectory has been very clearly on a downward trend. We are working on economic diversification because we have to if our communities are going to survive. And so Coalfield Development is trying to pioneer and model what a diversified, more sustainable economy can look like.
The very home of Coalfield Development is part of the reinvention. A century-old factory on the west side of Huntington, West Virginia, is slowly finding new life. Coalfield is renovating the 90,000 square feet to house its businesses, as well as other businesses and nonprofits from the area. The building provides lots of work for the construction side of Coalfield Development, which leads to personal and educational improvement opportunities for the staff.
I came straight out of a coal dock. I was a sample man. My building construction teacher in high school, he just called me up one day and asked me if I wanted a job, and I said, well, I'm looking for one. So he sent me to Brandon, and I was the second hire Coalfield ever made. I've seen it grow. Like realizing like it's not just us, it's everybody. It's like community, and it just teaches you a lot about respect, volition, all the grit, just everything. Just nice that there's a company out there that does this stuff.
The businesses under the Coalfield Development banner have spun up organically as needs have been identified. The group has also opened businesses growing vegetables and teaching small-scale farming techniques, as well as a solar panel installation company. Ultimately, employees have gained benefits from the 33-3-6 model, moving towards higher work skills and better life habits.
I've worked 5 or 6 different jobs. I haven't found the right one for me. But when I come into Coalfield has taught me what actual respect was, because I'd never had a childhood grow up like that. And when I entered Coalfield taught me everything that I needed in life, and Coalfield's the job for me. So I've been with them for about 8 months, and I learned everything from Coalfield.
A coalition that supports coal workers just wrote a letter to Congress saying the coronavirus outbreak is threatening the entire coal sector. The group is urging Congress to adopt a plan it says will prevent the coal worker crisis from getting much worse. Well, next time on Farm Week, imagine a downhill bike trail in the middle of grazing land. It's a rare alliance, a partnership between people who in the past would never have been able to compromise. They love the land, but in different ways, and because they came together, it turned into a mountain bike mecca and could be an epic ride for everybody involved once this outbreak is over. That's next time on Farm Week. And before we go, we've all had a little more time on our hands at home lately. Some of that Zach and I have used for decluttering. As I was going through my stuff, I found my son's John Deere lunchbox. Thought you might enjoy seeing that. He's 21 now, but not so long ago, he and this little lunchbox were almost the same size. Zach, how about you?
Well, Mike, I found a cowbell that belonged to my grandfather, who was a food scientist for the Extension Service, Gladden Brooks. This is an old cowbell from Mississippi State. If you're a Mississippi State person, you understand the significance of this. This is, I believe, a first generation before they added a handle to it. So that's what I got.
Very nice. And one more thing before we go. A couple of days ago, we got a nice note from viewer Emily Thompson. She's been recovering from a fractured hip in late January and wrote after watching our Prairie Moon story, "Very interesting. Good job, Mike Russell. I learn a lot from Farm Week." Well, Emily, Zach, and I appreciate your taking the time to reach out to us on Facebook and watching Farm Week so regularly. We work hard to bring you interesting and entertaining stories, and as long as Mississippi State University is allowed to operate during this outbreak, we'll keep those stories coming. Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv. And like Emily, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, and above all, stay healthy.